So now we want to validate our form. We have a nice little form here, and we can type in Jim Smith and order 2 to 3 tickets, and we see a message here. But what if we don't type in first name? We just type Smith. It says, "Thank you, Smith, for your order of tickets." Okay, that's not what we want. So let's start doing some validation. Let's see here. We'll have to start here where we get the information. We build the message. Let's make a little section here. Validate first name first. First name's first. And we'll do it like this. Okay, we already have the first name here. So if we want to know if it's empty, string length of first name is 0, then, well, we have a problem. We need to go back. Okay, we're already going back down here, so what we want to do here is define in the session a status, for instance. Status equals failed, for instance, and then down here in the build the message. Right now we have the system or the message always being the same. Let's go ahead and change this a little bit. We'll just do this here. So the session message equals that, but not always. If, for instance, if session status equals failed, then do something else. Else, if it was successful, then say that it was successful. But if there is not a first name, well, then it failed. And what are we going to do if it failed? We're just going to, for the time being, we're just going to say message. We'll just give them a different message. So please make corrections on the form. Okay, we're going to handle the saying that he has to fill in the first name later, but let's just see if this works first of all. So I'm not going to fill in first name, last name, whatever. Please make corrections on the form. Correct. Okay, it's functioning. Now, it would also be nice if we had, for instance, on our little form here, below this box here in red, saying precisely what he has to do. Please fill in the first name. So let's do that. At this point, we need a message of some kind. Let's call it first name message. Okay. And that message will be, please fill in your first name. Okay. Then we're going to go back here and we have to do something with that. So what are we going to do with it? Well, it's a good thing that we're programming in such an organized way, or things we get pretty messy right now. We can just go down right here in our display row, and this is the point where we need to put the text for each of the boxes, for each of our variables in our form. So let's just say that here, for instance, let's call it validation message. So if there's a validation message, it'll just display here. Now we just have to make the validation message. Validation message, and how are we going to define that? Well, we need to know what variable we're talking about, so let's ask for another variable here, or another parameter, and we'll call it variable name. You don't always have to send it, so the default is blank. In first name, the variable name is going to be simply first name. Now, we can go back down here, and to find out if we have a validation message, you remember that if there was no first name, well, we put a variable in the session called first name message. So we can say here if, well, first of all, we need to, there's always something to do first of all. We need to find out if we only need to do this if there's a variable name at all. So we have to do that real quick. Okay, one second. String length, variable name. If there is a variable name at all, then attempt to find a validation message. So if we're in here, we have something like first name in the variable name. So now get validation message. And to be exact, this is check for validation. So now we know that we can get one. So the session variable name at this point is simply the variable name plus message. Wasn't that right? Let's check in our process order tickets, first name message. Okay, so if we send first name here, then the session variable name is going to be first name message. And then the validation message is, let's make it a div so that it goes down one line after what we display on the right. Div, let's go ahead and do the style right now. What do we want? Font size, very small, so it fits in there. 8 point, and we said we wanted it red so that the user will see it. What do we want to display? We want to display the session. Well, it has a variable name here, and it is session variable name. A variable name. That's good. So now point and now end the div, and that should be all that we have here. And at this point, of course, we want to clear it out after we store it in the validation, so it's not always there when we do a reload, or so it's not there again when we do a reload. And that's done easily enough with the same thing here. Session variable name equals nothing. So there's nothing left in there, but we have it in validation message now, and we're already displaying it here, so it should work. Let's see if it works. So reload Jim again. Smith wants to get some tickets here. 3 tickets, but he forgot his first name, and it says, please make corrections on the form. Below the first name field, it says, please fill in your first name. Exactly what we wanted. That's super. Let's go on. Let's do the same thing for last name. So where's last name here? So validate first name. We'll just copy this whole thing. Validate. Let's just do this really slyly here. Search for first and replace with last in selected lines. Otherwise you have a mess. Validate last name, string last name, session status failed. That's right. Last name message, fill in your last name. We have a couple things to do here. We need to send the name with a variable here, last name. Everything else should be automatic. Let's see if it is. So this time Jim comes and he says Jim, forgets his last name and we don't have a last name. Why is that? Let's go debug. Okay, let's see if there's anything obvious that we forgot here. Oh yeah, here's something obvious. We forgot to save our changes. Okay, let's try it again. So Jim comes again, forgets his last name again, orders 6 tickets, and it says, please fill in your last name. So he types his name in again, types his last name in this time. Please fill in your first name. Okay, do you notice something here? Our information is disappearing when we come back. I type in Smith here and order tickets. It tells me that I forgot the first name. I forget the last name this time. It tells me that I forget the last name, but it's not remembering my first name. I have to type it in every time. It's not that bad on a small form, but if I had a large form, I might not order any more tickets because I would have to type in all my information again. So we want to handle that. How do we handle that? Let's start in our process order tickets page. So let's maintain the session or maintain the state of the form. Call it maintain session. And what we need to do here is simply, so far we've processed first name and last name, so let's just stick with that. First name equals first name. So we put the first name in the session, and now we'll put the last name in the session. So that's good. Now on the other side, we just have to put in this information, and we can do it right here with value. So we could just hard code it in here, session, and we'll call it first name, of course. Okay, I'm quite confident about this change, so I'll just do it again here without checking first. There we go, and this is last name. So now it should remember our last name and first name. Let's see if it does. So clear, here comes Jim again. Jim forgets his last name. 3 tickets. Fill in your last name, Jim. Okay. Super. It remembered Jim. That's great. Let's see if we forget our first name and type in Smith. 3 tickets. Okay, it didn't remember our last name. That's interesting. Why not? That's why we test. So, did I spell everything right? First name, last name, yes. Save my files. Okay, first name, last name. There. That's the problem right there. So, try it again. Forget my first name, put in my last name, Smith, 3 tickets, and it remembers my last name. So, we have the logic down here. Now, let's do the same thing for number of tickets. It's just the same thing here. We can copy this. It's good to copy and paste all the time, because if you have a little difference, PHP won't notice that too easily, and you can go bug searching for a while. So copy and paste is always good when you're putting in new variables. So let's see here. Now we're going to validate the tickets. This has a twist here, the tickets. We're going to basically use this code. But watch this. Validate number of tickets. Because at this point, tickets, or a number of tickets, could be empty because they just forgot to fill it in, or it could be false because they put in, for instance, they typed in TWO for 2, and if they did that, then this is false. That enables you to distinguish between them putting in something empty and typing in something that's not an integer. So basically, we just want to check both of those to be safe. So let's do that. Validate number of tickets. Number of tickets is equal to false and is Boolean. That's what that means. Is equal to and is of the type Boolean, false, or it's simply empty. String length of trim, number of tickets equals 0. So then status equals failed. That's right. And we want to say something a little different. Please enter the number of tickets. Thank you. Okay. We have another little change over here, though. What are we going to do with this? Well, it's simply the same. Just have to put in the value. There we go. So here we go right here. Okay. Except for there should be number of tickets. Number of tickets. Okay, now our form should be working pretty well. Jim comes again, types in his last name, types in his number of tickets that he wants, and it says, please fill in your first name, keeps the last name, and then the number of tickets. So let's type in first name, forget the last name, and it says perfectly. And Smith forgets the tickets. Or is tickets? Okay. Now, that all seems to work, which is perfect. Now, let's finally fill in the form correctly. And it says, please make corrections on the form. Why does it say that, actually? That's a bug. Let's go find it. Please make corrections on the form. Status failed. Because this is in the session, and we're not resetting it. Let's set it up here. It's part of maintaining the session. Let's call it something else. Succeeded. This. So it succeeded. And now, try it again. Thank you, Jim Smith, for your order of 3 tickets, which is great. Except that our information is still in there. If they completed the form correctly, we want the information to disappear. But luckily, that's not so hard. Let's go to the end of process order tickets. And for the case that they entered everything correctly, let's make another little block. Erase all variables. Session. First name equals nothing. Last name equals nothing. And let's copy before we make an error here. Number of tickets is nothing. Everything should work. Let's forget this again just to see. Okay, very good. His name is Smith. He types everything in correctly. It says, thank you, Jim Smith, for your order of 3 tickets. And erases all of our information. That's great. One more test. Browser compatibility. Jim. Of course, all of this logic should work. It doesn't have to do with the browser, but you never know. Jim Smith, order the tickets. Okay, I see something here. It's not doing the same thing here. Smith, huh? It's not showing this information that we should enter the number of tickets. Let's go check that real quick. Do a little debugging. Anything obvious here? Number of tickets, last name, message. Oh, that's probably it. So let's put this here. And we were doing this in. Okay, so Jim Smith, forget the tickets. And it still doesn't say that. Okay, that's interesting. Try it again. Still doesn't say that. Okay, so number of tickets, message. Did I forget it over here? Number of tickets. Okay. I'm not sending the variable name. I still have it in there. Now it'll work. So, Jim Smith, please enter your number of tickets. There it is. So let's make sure that it still works. Okay, there. We've got the last name. Smith, we forgot the tickets. And it says, please enter the number of tickets. So we do. And it says, thank you, Jim Smith, for your order of 13 tickets. And erases all of our information.